Hiya, I'm Sagar. I'm here to talk about mental health. More specifically, I'm here to talk about autism. Autism for me is something that defines my life. It's something I was diagnosed with when I was young, and I'm here to talk about how it affects me. I'm here to talk about how I would like to make other people aware about autism. For me, I was quite young, about 12 or 13. Most people are diagnosed when they are maybe 4, 5, 6. I was diagnosed quite late in my childhood. But for me, I didn't know then, I probably don't know now, and I may never know what autism actually is. There's no one real reason as to why someone has autism. There's no single belief as to what autism is. There's no one definition, but for me, it's a definition of who I am. It defines my life. For me personally, it's about accepting it and having a challenge. I've always had a challenge from the day I found out I'm autistic. I always knew I was different. I just didn't know how different. I don't think like a normal person does. The way I view the world will be different to how others view the world. I probably will never understand how other people think, and other people won't ever understand how I think. But for me, I'm happy that I'm autistic. I've suffered from depression from a young age, even before I was autistic. Personally, for me, depression is something where I'm low, I suffer anxiety, I don't want to know who I am, but it's something that I've overcome. Yes, I still suffer from depression, but I learned to cope with it. Before, I never learned to cope. I never knew what was what, why things happened, how to deal with it. For me, it was about having people around me that helped me overcome things. For me personally, right now, I have a friend who I can talk to whenever. If I'm feeling low, we'll always meet up for a chat. It's those little things that mean so much more. It's nice for someone to come up to me, hug me and say, "You're not alone." That's that's one thing that people don't ever always have. For me, if I see someone who I know is going for depression, I would have no objection going up to them and say, "Let's go for a talk," because that happened to me. I felt alone. For a very long time, I felt lonely, and it's not a nice feeling. I'd like to be able to be the change. I'd like to be able to tell people about my story and tell them, that, you might be going through things that are bad, but there's always someone out there who's been through a lot worse. Accepting autism isn't easy. To be told that you have autism is like being told you have cancer, but cancer is more broadly known, whether autism really isn't, because not a lot of people have to deal with it in their everyday lives. Unlike cancer, there isn't a cure for autism. It's a lifelong condition, but it's something I've learnt to deal with. It's something I've learnt to cope with. For example, I play a lot of snooker. That helps me cope with my autism. Sometimes I have an obsession to hit or punch. Instead of punching someone or something, I end up punching in a ball in the pocket. For me, snooker's always been the one thing I can rely on. For me personally, having autism hasn't been a positive thing always. I've been sacked from jobs because of it. I've been bullied because of it. I've lost friends. Certain members of my family don't want to know me because they feel I have this horrible disease. But for me, that used to bother me. It doesn't anymore, because I know for a fact that yes, though I'm autistic, I can feel like a normal person. Okay, I may not be able to think like a normal person, but I can show the world that look at me now. I have a great job, I have great friends, I have things that are going for me. I'm doing so well in my life. If I had looked at myself 7 years ago, 2012, which possibly could have been the worst year of my life for the first 6 months of it. And I look back and think 7 years later, I'm going to be like this. I wouldn't have believed it. 2012 started as a horrible year for me. Drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, you name it, I was doing the lot. I didn't have a care in the world. 6 months later, I looked back and thought 2012, first year was horrible. Second half was great. It's because I met my nephew then. And for me, he made me see the world through a different way. Even though he was only 1 year old at the time, you know, being with him every day, you know, it made me smile. It made me feel happy. It made me cope with having autism. I used to feel like a child before, thinking I'm autistic. Oh, how do I feel? But if a 1 year old could show me without even saying a word that, you know, life's meant to be happy and you're meant to live the fullest every day, then that's a lesson I'm glad to have learnt. One thing I've always remember is never count how many moments there are in life. Always count how much life there is in each moment. I feel, you know, proud to be autistic. You know, I don't see it as a weakness. I've always seen it as a strength of mine. There are some things I can do really well. For example, I can play pool or snooker well, and there are things I can't do well. But I don't ever feel low about myself. I've always known that no matter what happens, I'll always try my hardest, whether I have autism or not. So that's just a little bit about me. You know, I'm a nice, friendly person who has autism, but I'm here to show everyone, I'm here to show the world that just because I'm autistic, it doesn't mean I'm a monster. It doesn't mean I have this horrible disease. It doesn't mean that I'm just a bad person. I'm Sagar and I'm autistic. Thank you for listening to my story.